Okay, this is your video for Rome Standard 6.64, and if you hear a blood-curdling scream coming out of my mouth by the time I get this video done, is because this is like the 5th time I've tried to make this video because I've had so many interruptions. If I don't get it made this time, I think I'm just going to go home and lock myself in a room if I make the video. But I'm not sure. Alright, so I'm not real sure what I'm doing now, but we're going to give it a go. Alright, so you have two choices. You can either write your assignment on paper and show it to me, or you can do it in Word Online. If you do this assignment in Word Online, then you need to open OneDrive and go to your Rome 6.64 folder and open a Word document, and that's where you're going to put this assignment. Okay, so the first thing that you need to do is you need to either write or copy and paste this standard right here. Okay, so if you copy and paste it, then you know all you have to do is copy and paste it into Word, and then you'll pizzazzle it. If you're writing it, you've got a little bit to write this time. Okay, then basically what this standard is about, it is about the transition from the Roman Republic to the Roman Empire. Alright, so we're going to go through this. I'm going to add some stuff, and I'm going to straight out read some stuff. What I need you to do is you need to take at least 20 total notes. Alright, so what I would suggest you do to make it easier on you and to make it easier on me is number them. So as we go through these slides, you're going to number those notes that you take. Alright, and when you get to 20, if you want to take more, I don't know, there might be a dojo point in it for you. Okay, so, alright, here we go. Alright, as you know from class, we talked about when people first settled in Rome and where they were located. They started out building their homes on the hilltop and on the hillsides overlooking the Tiber River. Okay, Rome started out as a small city-state. All those little villages that were on the hilltops, on the sides of the hills, that were overlooking the river, they combined formed a city-state in central Italy. But as the city-state grew, its system of government did not survive. So they had to change. As things were changing, they had to change. Alright? Now, Rome had some struggles with a place called Carthage. Carthage is in North Africa. They fought with Carthage in 3 separate wars called the Punic Wars. Now, you're going to be familiar with a person's name that I mentioned that happened to have war elephants. Hint, hint. We talked about that in class the other day. Okay? You remember? Alright, these separate wars that they fought were called the Punic Wars. They were fighting for control of Western Mediterranean. Okay, sorry, I got interrupted just for a second. Okay? Alright, these wars were called the Punic Wars. They fought for control of the Western Mediterranean. Now, Carthage was a city in North Africa that controlled parts of Spain and Italy. Hannibal was their most successful general of Carthage. Alright, so he was leading this battle. He marched from Spain into Italy over the Alps with 40,000 soldiers and 40 war elephants. And he battled Rome. Now, it ended up that Rome defeated Carthage. One of the things that happened, though, in the middle of the battle is Hannibal got word that Scipio had invaded his hometown of North Africa. Okay? Scipio had crossed the sea into Africa, and his army had attacked Carthage. So, Hannibal had to return home due to his hometown being attacked. When he got there, Scipio had defeated Hannibal. I guess Hannibal had gotten there, sorry. But anyways, Scipio defeated Hannibal and won the war. Now, later, Rome had defeated Hannibal in the Punic Wars, but they were still fearful of Carthage. So, they pretty much decided that Carthage had to be destroyed. So that's exactly what they did. They destroyed Carthage. And when I say they destroyed Carthage, the Roman troops went in, they burned down the city, they looted the city, and then the people that were left, they sold them into slavery. So, yeah, they were pretty serious about destroying Carthage. Alright, now, Rome now controlled most of the lands along the western half of the Mediterranean Sea. Okay, They were sending their armies to the east to conquer Greece and parts of Southwest Asia. Rome did not have an emperor they did not have an emperor, even though they ruled as an empire. So what they did was they divided their empire into provinces, and those provinces were governed by magistrates. Now, Rome's conquest, all these areas that they were defeating and they were taking into control, that was bringing them power, and that was bringing them wealth, and that was bringing them a lot of publicity, I suppose you would say, in today's age. But it was also bringing them a lot of problems. Now, one of the things that the magistrates did was they started taking advantage of their power. They started stealing. They became very wealthy. They started stealing from the people in the provinces. They started looting from rich foreign enemies. The wealth made them more powerful, but they took that power and they used it to their advantage, and because of that, they were breaking the rules. They were breaking the rules of politics. They were using violence to win elections. People were scared of them. Because of that, the government stopped working. And when it started working, then Rome's government began to fail. Now, because the magistrates were stealing and looting from people, Rome was growing richer from conquering all these lands, but the magistrates were stealing from the people. So Rome might be getting richer, but the poor people that were under these leaders, the leadership of these magistrates and in these provinces, they were getting poorer. And things were not, it wasn't good. It was just not good. Okay? So landowners and employers bought slaves to do the work that used to be done by the poor Romans. Tenant farmers lost their livelihood, and the poor people came to the city looking for work. Now, the government was afraid that Rome's poor people were going to riot or cause a revolution, so one of the things that they tried to do to keep the peace was some of the politicians thought that it would be a good idea to give them grain. If they gave them grain, then they would be feeding them, and hopefully that would help them keep the peace. There were other politicians who opposed this. They did not think that they should be doing it. Okay, so it was a battle between should we, shouldn't we should, we shouldn't. So the politicians from the two sides supported gangs that fought one another in the streets. Now, there was a tribune. Now, if you remember from Miss Williams' slide that we did today in class, and let me go find that. Hang on a second. Okay, found it. Remember I told you that we hadn't talked about this yet, but we would? Well, the tribunes were people who acted as judges. There was a tribune who decided, his name was Tiberius Gracchus, and he tried to give land to the poor people to try to keep the peace, because there was such a divide between the rich and the poor. Well, his opponents that thought that he should not be giving land to anyone, they had him killed. And his brother was in the same type struggle. I guess he was trying to do the same thing as Tiberius did. He was killed as well. He died in the same type of struggle. Alright, so, now let me go back to the other slide. Alright, so there was a consul. Now remember we talked about consul today in class. Gaius Marius was a powerful consul who reformed the Roman army. What he did was he allowed the poor citizens to join. Now, one of the things you don't know, that until around 100 BC, only a citizen who could afford their own army could serve in the military. So Marius allowed that even the poorest of citizens, whether they could afford their armor or not, should be allowed to join the military. Now, obviously, if they're poor, they're not going to be able to afford their I can't even think of the word right now. Their armor. That's it. Armor. Good grief, that word had left my head. They could not afford their armor. So what Gaius Marius decided to do was the government was going to pay for their equipment. This makes the army stronger because now you have more people that are joining, plus it makes them more professional, all right? And on top of that, it helped the poor. So one of the things then that he also did was these new soldiers, if they would stay in the army for many years and support Rome, then when they retired, right here, after serving many years in the army, when they retired, they would receive land. So after serving many years in the army, they could retire with land to support their families. So as a result of that then, the soldiers that were in the army became more loyal to their commander. All right, because Gaius Marius is doing this for them. They're becoming loyal to him, which means if they're becoming loyal to him, they might be a little bit more loyal to him than they are to their own government. All right, because I'm sure that there were still people in the government that thought that we should not be doing this. All right, now, we're still talking about from a republic to an empire, okay? The republic's military commanders used their new power, and they turned their armies against their rivals and against the Senate. And Rome had its very first civil war. Now, I think you know what a civil war is. Now, we did not talk about Marius and Sulla, but we're going to right here just very briefly. All right? The commander Sulla was chosen to fight a rich enemy, but an assembly voted to take this position away and give it to Marius. Sulla marched his troops to Rome to get his job back by force. He fought and won a civil war against Marius and his supporters. So then Sulla ruled as dictator for more than a year before he retired. When he retired, that left the position open for someone to rule. That's where these two people that you've heard of, and actually there was a third one, Pompey and Caesar and Crassus comes in. All right. New commanders rose up to take Sulla's place. There were several who fought, Roman leaders who fought amongst themselves for power. Okay? The three that rose up above everyone else was Crassus, Pompey, and Julius Caesar. Now, Crassus was a general and one of Rome's wealthiest men. Pompey and Caesar were also well known, were also well known, and they were also rich, but they were known for their military accomplishments. So these three men, instead of fighting for who's going to control and who's going to do what, they formed what's called the First Triumvirate. Okay, now I'm going to write that word down for you. Hang on. Okay, there you go. The First Triumvirate. All right, you should see the prefix right here, tri, which means three. And what they did is this group of three men shared equal power. All right. Now, you're going to read in here and you're going to go, but Miss Wills, you told us something different in class. Yes, just let me get there. All right, new commanders rose up to take Sulla's place. Pompey conquered parts of Southwest Asia. Caesar conquered Gaul. The two men teamed up and used their influence to run the government together, ignoring laws and customs. Miss Wills, I thought you told me there was three. There was three. All right, here's what happened. Each triumvirate commanded an outlying area of the Roman Republic. Pompey led Spain, Crassus led Syria, and Caesar was in Gaul. Now, Gaul was made up of mostly what's now France and Belgium. So, while serving in Gaul, Caesar fought the Celts and invaded Britain. He won the admiration and support of the poorer classes. Okay, well, the senators back in Rome, they were getting really uneasy about Caesar because they feared that he was becoming too popular and he was going to seek power from Sulla. Now, so the three of them ruled in different areas. So the reason this is two is because I think what this text versus the text, some of the other texts that I'm looking at, was the fact that Crassus was killed in battle. So when it came right down to it, it came down to two men being the next leader. It was either Julius Caesar or Pompey. So that's why it tells you later the two commanders fought. There was three to begin with. Crassus was killed in battle. That left Julius Caesar and Pompey. These two commanders fought for power. The Senate in Rome sided with Pompey, and it ordered Caesar to give up his power. Caesar flat out refused. No, not doing it. So, Caesar knows if he returns to Rome, he's going to be imprisoned or killed. But he gathered his troops and he crossed the Rubicon. Okay? And he made his way into Italy. And I don't know what I was about to say right there. Okay, so don't know where that was going. But he marched into Rome, crossing the Rubicon River. When he did that, he knew he was going to be starting a civil war. But he was not willing to reverse his decision. So Caesar's army came in, civil war started. His soldiers captured all of Italy, and they drove Pompey's forces out of the country. The fighting then spread eastward, with Caesar finally crushing Pompey's armies in Greece in 48 BC. So, that's how he took that over. Now, Caesar took control of Rome, and he used his power to help the poor. But, remember, I told you this, he also wanted to make himself dictator for life. The senators did not like this. They wanted to keep the republic as it was. So a group of senators on March the 15th, beware of the Ides of March, murdered Caesar on a day called the Ides of March, which is March 15th. And remember we talked about on his way there, an oracle had told him, you might not want to go to the Senate today. It might not be a good day for you. He went on, if he could change his mind, would he? I don't know. I sort of doubt it. Alright, as you can imagine, some people did not like the fact that these senators had killed Caesar. So, after Caesar's death, civil war broke out. Caesar's 18-year-old grandnephew, Octavian, joined two of Caesar's top generals, Mark Antony and Marcus Lepidus. I think that's how you say it, Lepidus. These three leaders formed the Second Triumvirate, and they divided Rome, the empire, among themselves. Octavian took control of Italy in the west, Antony ruled Greece in the east, and Lepidus, that's a strange name, took charge in North Africa. Okay? Okay, so I've decided I'm saying his name wrong. I'm looking at the pronunciation again. Lepidus. I believe it's Lepidus because that makes more sense as to how it's spelled. Alright, so anyways, just wanted to correct that there. So, I'm just glad I didn't have that name. Alright, so the Second Triumvirate, though, did not last long. We're going to call him L. L retired from politics, and Octavian and Antony became rivals. And I think you know why, because I told you this little soap opera the other day. Antony fell in love with the Egyptian queen Cleopatra, and they formed an alliance. And as you remember, that wasn't good for him to fall in love with her because he was married to Mark Antony's sister, he was married to Octavian's sister, Octavia, and that was a slap in the face to his family when Mark Antony divorced Octavia to marry Cleopatra, and yeah, it turned into As the Roman World Turns, and didn't turn out too well for Mark Antony. So, we'll pick up right here. Antony planned to make himself the sole ruler of the Republic with Cleopatra's help. Many Romans grew alarmed at this news, and their support enabled Octavian to declare war on Antony. So remember we talked about the Battle of Actium. This happened off the coast of Greece, and Octavian's forces defeated Antony and Cleopatra's forces. Alright, and remember Antony went back to Egypt, and that is where he killed himself, and then Cleopatra could not live without her long-lost love, Mark Antony, so she killed herself as well. But hers was not quite as quick and painless. Ugh. Okay, so moving right along. Alright, now, one of the things I did not tell you in class the other day was Octavian captured Alexandria and made Egypt Roman territory. Antony and Cleopatra killed themselves to avoid being captured by Octavian because they knew that it would be even worse if they were captured alive. So, Octavian became the supreme ruler of Rome. and the civil wars had ended, and so too did the Roman Republic. The end of the Roman Republic. I told you this the other day. I told you that when you thought of Octavian, remember they changed his name to Augustus. Just to remember, think about it as being on August the 1st calendar, and you have to go to that calendar and write down, today Octavian becomes Augustus, and we end the Roman Republic, and guess what we start? Alright, Octavian, a new direction. Octavian could have made himself a lifelong dictator. However, he knew that many Romans favored a republic. These Romans were influenced by Cicero, who was a well-known political leader and writer in Rome. Cicero strongly supported the representative republican government. Cicero also did not trust dictators. Okay, throughout Rome's civil wars, Cicero had argued that a representative government should be restored to Rome. He died before Octavian rose to power. Cicero's ideas, however, would influence the writers of the United States Constitution centuries later. Alright, publicly, Octavian voiced his support for a republic, but privately, so there's a difference between publicly and privately. Publicly, everybody knows about it. He's telling them, I support a republic. But privately, he felt very different. He believed that a republic government was too weak to solve Rome's problems. So he felt that Rome needed a strong leader. With a strong and loyal army supporting Octavian, the Senate consented to his wishes. That means that they said, okay, we know what you really want. All right, we're going to go with it. It declared Octavian consul, tribune, and commander-in-chief for life in 27 BC. Octavian, however, took the title of Augustus, or the Majestic One. So Caesar Augustus, as Octavian was now called, so now they refer to him not as Octavian anymore, but instead as Augustus, became Rome's first emperor, or the all-powerful ruler of Rome. Okay, Augustus' rule. We're almost done. I'm going to abbreviate a lot of this after here, I think. The rule of Augustus, formerly known as Octavian, marked the beginning of a new era. This is very important that you know, because I just really feel like you need to know this. Hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Alright. It marked the beginning of a new era. For nearly 200 years, the Roman world enjoyed peace and prosperity. This time period lasted until about 180 AD, and it was known as a time called the Pax Romana, or Roman peace. Pax, peace, Romana, Rome. So peace in Rome, Roman peace. During this time, Rome reached its height of power. Okay? The Emperor Augustus was determined to protect his empire. So he created a professional permanent army. It had about 150,000 soldiers. He also created special units that would guard the emperor and would take care of Rome. Throughout his borders, he wanted to make sure that it would be easily defended, so he established boundaries along natural physical features: the Rhine River, the Danube River, the Atlantic Ocean. Troops were stationed along those areas to protect the empire from invasion. Okay? In addition to protecting the empire, he wanted to display his power of Rome, so he had many public buildings, fountains, palaces rebuilt to show how great Rome was. He's the one that I showed you a picture of that said, I found Rome a city of brick and left it a city of marble. Okay, so he had lots of improvements made, lots of buildings and pieces of architecture made to show Rome's greatness. Let me actually find you a picture. Hang on just a second. Okay, I think I found a few things. This is a 3D imaging done on a computer, and it's color-coded because the things that are in pink are buildings that Augustus would have had built out of marble. So all these buildings in pink, those were structures that would have been made out of marble. The ones that are yellow were, during his time, they were buildings that would have been under construction. There's one over here as well. The brown are buildings that would have been built out of brick. And the white and gray, I believe, were buildings that were already there. Now, this is a picture of the Temple of Augustus, the only remaining structure from the original Roman Forum in Pula. It was dedicated to the first Roman Emperor, Augustus. And then we've talked about these, so I wanted you to see one. This is a Roman aqueduct. And they really think that this one was built during the time period of Augustus as well. All right, so, you know, we have one of those in the classroom that someone had made. But I wanted you to see a picture of one from Rome. All right, so that's a Roman aqueduct. All right, now let me see if I can remember where we were. We were talking about Pax Romana. Okay, hang on a second. Let me get something here. Okay, so I lost my train of thought, but I think I know where we were. Yes, we were talking about I found Rome a city of brick, and he boasted that I left it a city of marble. Okay, he also worked to improve Rome's government. During his reign, there was about 50 million people that lived within the empire's borders. So that is slightly fewer than the number of people living in Italy today. So he needed to control that mass number of people. So he appointed officials called proconsuls, or we know them as governors, to oversee those provinces. And he would go periodically and visit those provinces to check and make sure that everything was going well. He also changed the empire's tax system. Before Augustus, tax collectors paid the government for the right to collect taxes. Did you hear that? Before Augustus, tax collectors paid the government for the right to collect taxes. That just doesn't even sound right, does it? So, after Augustus, hang on, I lost my place. Tax collectors play the government right. Okay, tax collectors could keep some of what they collected from the people. Many tax collectors were dishonest and took too much from the people. To solve this problem, Augustus made tax collectors permanent officials and paid them a regular wage. Well, doesn't that make sense? He gave them a job and paid them because they were cheating. They were collecting these taxes from people, and then because they had to pay the government to collect the taxes, they were collecting more than they could, more than they should from the people. They were being dishonest, taking too much money. So Augustus said, forget that, we're just going to give you a job, and your job is going to be to collect taxes, and we're going to pay you a wage to do it. That way you don't have to steal from the people that you're getting taxes from. He also changed Rome's legal system. He set a code of laws for people living in the provinces who were not Roman citizens. Okay? The Roman citizens were under the code of law. So now you're there and you're like, well, I don't have to, be under a law because I'm not a Roman citizen. No, he said that you did need to be under a law if you were not a Roman citizen. So he set or created a code of laws. Most of those people eventually became citizens, so then the laws applied to everybody, the rule of law. However, the legal system often favored the authority of the empire over individual citizens' rights. Now, Augustus was fearful that his people would still be unhappy with his leadership, so to preserve his rule and his empire, he imported grain from Africa and distributed that grain out to the poor. He believed that a well-fed population would be less likely to revolt against him. You think that's true? He was trying to keep his people happy. I believe he might have been onto something there. Augustus ruled Rome for almost 40 years, and after he died in 14 AD, his adopted son Tiberius became the emperor. After Tiberius, 3 other emperors from Augustus's family ruled. And let's see. Hang on one second. Okay, I wanted to read this to make sure I had this correct before I told you this. Okay, his adopted son took over, Tiberius, and after Tiberius, 3 other emperors from his family ruled. One of them's name was Caligula. There was Claudius and Nero. Tiberius and Claudius ruled very well. Caligula and Nero, not so much. They were very cruel. Caligula murdered a lot of people and spent money recklessly, and he must have been crazy because he appointed his favorite horse as the consul. Yes, you did hear me correctly. horse. Horse as a consul. And he was finally murdered. I guess they kind of got tired of animals trying to tell them what to do. And Nero, he was a brutal emperor who killed many people. Among his victims were his mom and his 2 wives. He later committed suicide after the Senate had him sentenced to death for treason. So, yeah, they weren't too, those 2 weren't, they were nuts. That's what they were. Okay, so that is the end of this lesson 6.64. Alright, hopefully you have 20 notes taken, and hopefully you enjoyed some of the craziness of this video, because it was crazy. It was crazy. Not to say that it didn't end on a crazy note. It did end on a crazy note, but I've had my door open, my phone ring, announcements made. Whoa, I'm about nuts. Okay, so anyways, I'm going to be quiet now so you can go. I'll see you. Bye.